Hey guys, it's Matt here. Welcome to the Seeds of Awareness video channel. In this video, I'm going to be talking about embodiment and hopefully providing a bit more clarity and understanding to what embodiment actually means, because I think there is a little bit of misunderstanding and distortion around this term. And I also want to help you understand how it relates to everyday human life and about how it relates to helping us make our daily experience of being human a much more enriching, a much more fulfilling and joyful experience, and a much more real and human experience as well. So in a nutshell, embodiment is about unifying with the body's intelligence. And what I mean by that is that most humans in Western society are divided within, but they don't really know it. And when I say divided, I mean the two types of intelligence that are inherent within us. And in esoteric schools of thought, it's been said that we have a male aspect of our consciousness and we have a female aspect of our consciousness. And this has absolutely nothing to do with gender. This is in both men and women. And the male aspect of our consciousness resides, the awareness for it, the center of awareness of our male aspect of consciousness resides up in the head, whereas the female aspect of our being, its awareness is down in the body, and in particular around the lower gut region. And this is what the Japanese referred to of when they talk about thinking from the belly, which they call hara. The goal of embodiment is to unify those two intelligences, and if that's a word, in types of intelligence, it's to unify those two types, and that allows us to come back into more of a state of wholeness, and it then allows us to see the world and experience the world more in a state of wholeness as well. So let me keep explaining, because if you're not quite fully understanding it, that's absolutely perfectly fine. It can take a little bit of time to get it, and you might even need to watch this video a few times as well. So what I mean by that is that where currently most people, and this is not a judgment or a criticism, because I'm definitely in the same boat and working my way out of it, and it's because we're a product of our culture and society, but most people, and I'd say nearly everyone in the West, is living up in the head, only worshipping and only aligning with the male aspect of our consciousness. And the female part of our being has been deeply suppressed, and you could argue that it's been deeply suppressed for thousands and thousands of years. And the male aspect of our consciousness, once again, it's not about demonizing the male, it's just about harmonizing the two. But when the male aspect of our consciousness disconnects from the inner female part of our being, it becomes like a tyrant, because the male aspect of our consciousness has different characteristics to the female aspect. And the characteristics of the male is that it's more based around separateness. It sees itself as being separate from the world, as being separate from nature. And it doesn't see the wholeness of nature. It doesn't see how everything's connected. And it also is very much dominated by thinking in a logical, analytical fashion, more disconnected from feelings and disconnected from emotions. And it's very much projects into the future and also projects into the past. So the head intelligence is kind of living in this abstract fantasy land of thought, and it's living in this world that is in anything but the present moment. And it's an illusory world, because it's a world that doesn't exist, because the future that it's projecting into doesn't exist, and also the past has already happened, so it's no longer real. And also it's this illusion of separateness is also illusory for anyone who understands the nature of our reality on a deeper level. Will understand that everything is interconnected. And so this part of our intelligence is important, but it becomes completely tyrannical, completely destructive, both inwardly and outwardly, when it's disconnected from our inner female being, our inner female intelligence. So the inner female part of our being is more connected with nature. It's more connected with the cycles of nature. It knows, it's the body's intelligence, it's the body's knowing, and what the body knows is that it's from this world. It's made up of the minerals and atoms of this world. It's locked into the cycles of the sun and the cycles of the four seasons, and it's constantly communicating to us through intuition and instincts what we need to do in each moment to stay in a state of wholeness and health, and to stay in a state of being prepared. Because the body is also very interested in our survival. And the female aspect of our being sees and feels the connectedness of nature, the wholeness of nature. It understands how everything's connected. It doesn't see itself as being separate, as nature being there and me being here. It's just part of a system. It's part of a harmony. And the female aspect of our being wants to harmonize with nature. It wants to find its place in nature and be carried by nature rather than trying to control nature, which is exactly what the head tries to do. And the female aspect of our being is also experiences the world differently. It doesn't experience the world through thinking and knowledge and facts. It can only feel the world. It can only experience the world through sensations and feelings, and in a way that's kind of beyond words. And whereas the head intelligence tries to understand everything, it has to have everything in its place. So the goal of embodiment is about realizing that because we've been living up in our heads for so long as individuals and as a society, we've created this ridiculous world where we've become so separate from nature that we're basically destroying the habitat, destroying the planet that we rely on. And basically what we're doing is we're building these civilizations, we're building these machines, we're building these concrete jungles that just clear nature, impose its will on nature, and sees nature as a commodity. We don't even see us as animals. That's the thing. Like, we're mammals, we're animals just like all the animals out there, even though we can think in a bit of a more different fashion, and we can think about things a little bit differently, which we view as an advanced intelligence. But really we're an animal just like all of nature. We're an organic being just like the plants. They're just different expressions of what we are. Yet the head intelligence, the inner male aspect of our being, sees it all, sees nature as a giant supermarket. It's like, if I just take what I need and continuously take what I need and do what I want, then I will be okay, and that's all that matters. That's how the inner male sees the world, because the inner male is very much associated with the ego, and the ego is very much just associated with itself. So Western cultures have a very self-centric perception of the world, and you can see this in the way we design civilizations, where nothing's done sustainably, where we just take minerals and resources from the ground as if they're an endless commodity, and we take them from precious jungles, which are like the lungs of our planet, not caring what it does to the native inhabitants there, not caring what it does to these ancient forests and jungles, just so that we can make the technology and machinery that we think we need to exist, that then uses that resource and spits it out into the air as pollution. And we've got to the point where we've pushed the natural resources of this planet to their absolute brink, and most of the answers that the inner male tyrant can come up with is to just keep doing it, but at a faster rate. It's absolutely ridiculous. So this male aspect of our consciousness, when it's disconnected from the female, is living in this crazy fantasy land, and it's ruled by like fears and desires to control and create its own security and impose its will on nature. Whereas the female aspect of our being, what it wants to do is harmonize with nature. It sees how nature is this self-harmonizing, brilliant system from our planet to the whole universe. It's self-regulating, self-harmonizing, and the proof of that is that we could leave this planet tomorrow, and what do you think would happen to this planet within 50 years? You're exactly right. It would just come back into balance. Everything would reharmonize. It would just shug humans off who've become like a bloody plague, and everything would come back into balance. And so what that means is there's something, some sort of intelligence, something in nature that's harmonizing everything. And so the female aspect of our being wants to jump in on this dance of harmony. It wants to join the dance. It wants to be carried by nature. And the only way we can do that is by allowing our instincts and intuition and the knowing intelligence of our heart to guide our decisions. And they're always, because it's our body's intelligence, which is from this world, locked into the cycles of this world, that inner voice, that intuition and heart-based knowing is our body's intelligence guiding us into harmony. It's our invitation to the dance of harmony. And so an example of this harmony, this natural harmonizing, and how everything has its own right place can be found in this brilliant book called The Secret Life of Trees by a guy called Peter Wohlleben, which I highly recommend. And he talks, some of you might have heard of this, about how the wolves in Yellowstone National Park in America were eradicated in the early 1900s. And what they found was that it disrupted the whole ecosystem of Yellowstone National Park, because what it meant was elks weren't, local deer were able to grow in numbers, and they weren't kept on the move by the wolves. So they over consumed certain grasslands and trees, and that then affected the river flows, and that affected what materials the local beavers had to build their dams, and that affected river flows in a negative way and affected the whole ecosystem. And when they introduced the wolves back into the park in the 90s, everything within a decade or two came back into balance. So that's just a little example of how nature naturally harmonizes itself, and how even predators, contrary to some people's opinion, have their role, have their important place in the harmony of nature. So embodiment, when we become more aligned with the female aspect of our being, not only do we harmonize more with nature, but we harmonize more in everything. We desire to be more harmonized in our health. We desire to be more harmonized in our thinking. We desire to be more harmonized in our life. We don't want to work most of our life just to earn money. We want to actually express ourselves. We want to express our creativity. We want to have more deep and meaningful relationships. We want to be in more unified communities. We want to be more sustainable in the ways of living. We want to come back to those things that really matter as being human. We want to be raw. We want to be wild, because the female aspect of our being is completely wild and untamable. She just wants to let loose. She just wants to let it rip and let her true self come out to the world. And I personally believe that our inner female intelligence is our soul's voice speaking to us, our soul's voice, which is pushed so far to the back in our society from a young age, coming through our body and speaking to us through intuition and through our heart-based knowing. But the reason why we're so divided, I think, is because we're conditioned to be that way. I think it's a natural state to be more in the body, to be more harmonized with the body, and therefore harmonized with nature. I think this state of living in the head is very unnatural, but because we've been there for so long, most people don't even realize they're there. And also when we start questioning it, when we start thinking it's wrong, our society makes us think that we're the ones who are going loopy. And so we try to make ourselves adjust to a distorted society. And it comes back to that quote by Jiddu Krishnamurti, that it's no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. And it's so true, because I think the fact that as a society we're ruled by our heads, and clearly the leaders of the rulers of this world are very in their heads. You can see it by the way that the tie has become the symbol for efficiency and intelligence in our world. And when you think about what a tie is, it's like a noose contracting and stifling our neck, stopping our awareness from dropping down the body. It's kind of like hanging the body and like sacrificing it, only allowing the head to take charge of everything. And the head, just like the head sees nature as a resource and nature as something separate, the head sees the body as something separate. The head thinks his body is just some mechanical machine designed to carry the head around and reproduce the head, and that the brain is the only intelligence. Whereas What the head doesn't understand is that the body is alive with intelligence and awareness. We're just desensitized to it. And this has even been proven by neurobiology, where they've found that there's a brain in the gut and there's also a brain in the heart. So there's a brain in the gut that's called our enteric nervous system, and it can work independently of the other brains. We've also got our heart brain, which the Heart Math Institute have done an amazing job in researching, and they've found that the heart brain has a neural circuitry complicated as the head brain, which means it is a brain in itself. And there's more neural pathways going from the heart to the brain than there are the other way around, which means that there's more information going from the heart to the head than there is the other way around. So really, we don't just have this head brain, which this machine body, this machine lump of meat and bones or whatever is carrying around. We've got a trilogy of brains, and we are alive with intelligence, and just all of this is meant to be working in harmony. But I think we become divided from a very young age. We're born into a culture that's all about being head-centric, all about living in the head. There's all our art, all our buildings, all our symbology, all our education system. Everything's designed from a head-centric perspective, because our relationship with the body, my favorite embodiment teacher, Philip Shepherd's, he says that our relationship with the body is our foundational relationship. It sets the tone for our relationship with the world. So if we're aligned with the head, and the head sees things as separate, and the head views everything from this disconnected intelligence up here, then that's how we're going to see the world as well. So we go through this education system that, rather than allowing us to express the body and follow our intuition and follow our passion, it forces us to sit in a chair, sit really still, and stifle our body's intelligence and learn through repetition of facts through the head. And we get in trouble if we speak up. We get in trouble if we act out. If we've got too much body's energy, they say we've got ADD. It's really ridiculous. So what we learn from a young age is that this body's intelligence is scary. This body's intelligence is going to get me in trouble. I need to suppress it. And when you suppress it, you dissociate from it and you move up into the head. So embodiment is about bringing that awareness back down into the body and allowing the head intelligence to serve the female intelligence of our body, which means we're going to be more connected with nature, more connected with what it means to be human, expressing ourselves more, not judging ourselves as much, not operating on programming, allowing that wild, untamable, unprogrammable part of us to come out, because the head is more like a computer. The head, when it's disconnected from the untamable part of us, the head is like a robot. It just operates on what it's been conditioned to do. And it operates on ego perspective of the world. And the soul's voice just gets pushed to the background. And so what we get is we get this adult population of people who've come through this head-centric society. And by the time they're adults, they're so conditioned to be in the head that it's kind of like walking robots who are walking around operating on mechanicalness and operating on conditioning, and whereas their soul is still in kind of like a child embryonic like state, pushed right to the background. We want that soul essence to come more to the foreground. And it doesn't mean we get rid of the head intelligence. It's still there. It's just a really great tool. We use it when needed. It's just not disconnected from everything else. It's not running the show, which it's a terrible master. So the difficult thing about coming back into the body is that the body can be a really scary and difficult place to inhabit when we've been disconnected from it for so long. It can be full of wounds, fears, traumas. We've had all sorts of conditioning from our teachers and maybe our parents, getting us in trouble if we express ourselves the wrong way, being bullied. Unfortunately, many people have been sexually abused. All these sort of traumas, sexual traumas, we're taught from a young age through religion and other aspects of our society that our sexual desires and our sexual energy, which are perfectly natural, are not as sinful, and they're shameful. So we feel this shame about the body. We've got distorted perceptions around nudity, where we think that There's private areas of the body that are shameful or embarrassing to be seen, whereas they're just parts of the body. It's all been so distorted. So we've got all this terrible conditioning around the body. So bringing our awareness, inhabiting the body again, is a real process. It takes daily effort, especially if you've got a lot of traumas in the body, and it takes daily sincere self-work and shadow work as well, which is a concept I'll explain in another video. And it also takes a belief that living in the head is not where we want to be, because as we start experiencing more alignment with our body's intelligence, we start realizing how crappy the head is, because when we bring ourselves down to the body and we're more in a flow, we're more surrendered, we're more at peace, we're more creative, we're more expressive and confident, and then you slingshot back up in the head, because in the early days of practicing embodiment, you will keep slingshotting back in the head. It's kind of like you're trying to get down the body, but you've got this elastic band wrapped around your waist, and as soon as you lose concentration, the band will slingshot you back up into the head. It can be frustrating, but what you realize is that when you come back in the head, it's such a crappy place to live. You've just got these anxieties and fears and incessant mind chatter whirling around and around and around, and you're out of touch with reality. Your senses are you're desensitized from your senses. You're not present with people. You don't want to interact with people. It drains a lot of your energy. I personally think it's a real sucky place to live, and just because everyone else is living there doesn't mean we need to. But I want to wrap this up with giving you an understanding of what I mean by bringing our awareness down in the body, because that can be something that can be a bit confusing if you haven't actually tried it. So what I want to do is do a bit of a really quick exercise with you, and you can close your eyes or you can keep your eyes open, whatever. So just realize that as you're listening to me, all your senses are activated right now in your body, from your touch and your feeling, and you're sensing temperature, and you're feeling the weight of your clothes. But when I'm talking to you, you're more honed in on only the senses of sight, if you're looking at me, and hearing through the words that I'm speaking. So that means you've got all this peripheral awareness that you kind of not tuning into, but you're more focused. Your center of awareness is only taking in a certain amount of information. So what that allows you to understand is that there is a center of awareness to your intelligence, to your awareness. There is a center of your awareness, and you can control where that goes. So for example, if you pay attention to where your center of awareness is, you'll probably realize it's up in the head. For most people it is. But what you can do is you can bring that back down into your body. And one of the best ways to do it is just start tuning into your senses. So if you're sitting down like me, just pay attention to what it feels like to have the seat or the cushion on your bum. What does it feel like to have the shirt? Feel the weight of the shirt on your back. Feel, what does the air feel like? What's the temperature like? Is there a slight gust of wind hitting your skin? What do your shoes or your socks feel like, or the floor feel like on your toes? What do the back of your legs feel like? What does your lower back feel like? You've got all this awareness, this information coming into your vehicle, to your body, that you could pay attention to, but most of the time we're totally desensitized to those senses. But we've also got this inner world we can connect into, which is full of feelings and instincts and energy and flow. And you can even tune into your heartbeat and your digestive organs and things like that. So tuning into these parts of your body takes daily practice, and you'll realize that the second that you stop consciously paying attention to them, you'll just slingshot back into the head, and you'll start being in that realm of abstract thought again. But it takes daily practice to anchor yourself back down into the body. And I think guided meditations can be really, really important. And one of my favorite teachers, Philip Shepherd, has these embodiment practices. They're about $15 to $20 on his website, but for me, they've been absolutely game-changing. And I'll put them in the information section below, because I highly recommend them. I've also written a free guide called 8 Daily Habits to Enhance Your Embodiment. and that takes you through 8 things that I do on a daily basis that I think are really crucial to embodiment. If you do these things most days for 6 to 12 months, you will see a transformation in how you experience the world, and I think a really positive transformation as well. And in terms of the shadow work and the traumas we're working through, that stuff, you know, it might need a therapist. I've had to use a therapist at times for different childhood wounds. It might need different help from different avenues, but only you, if you tap into your inner knowing, your inner intuition, only you will know what's right for you. So I highly encourage you to get those exercises of Philip Shepherd, and also to download my free guide in the info section below. I hope this has clarified a bit. I know I've spoken for a while, but it's such a crucial topic, and it's really hard to convey because it's not a realm. The realm of the body's intelligence is not a realm most people have existed in at all, or for not a very long time at all. So if there's any questions, or if there's any things you want me to elaborate on, please go ahead. I think my next video, stay tuned, and please subscribe. So the next video I want to be talking about shadow work more specifically. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you soon.